Welcome to the Radient Pearl Business Circle, where we talk about business, leadership, and self care. I'm your host, Renée Morgan, founder and CEO of Radient Pearl Coaching and Consulting, certified business and executive coach. Today's topic: fractional leadership and how it can work for you. Today's guest is the author of newly released Amazon bestseller, Fractional Leadership: Landing Executive Talent You Thought Was Out of Reach. He's the founder and CEO of Fractional Leadership, which is a resource for both business owners and fractional leaders. He's also the founder and CEO of Wolf's Edge Consulting, a firm of fractional COOs working with small and mid-sized business owners. Today, I introduce you to Ben Wolf.
Thanks so much for having me, Renee. Appreciate it.
Hey, Ben, how are you?
Pretty good. Can't complain.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So tell us a little bit about your background. I know we're going to talk about fractional leadership and what that is, because I know everybody's dying to know. But give us a little bit about your background.
Absolutely. Definitely have a interesting background, a few lives, but some of the more recent lives were that I was a corporate restructuring, a bankruptcy attorney at a big firm in New York City for a few years, and then left that and found myself in the entrepreneurial world where I, joined a founder kind of pre-launch at a healthcare startup and had the opportunity to build most of its operations and grow that company to the point where it was actually the largest healthcare organization of its type of that type of agency in the entire state of New York in about 3 years. After that, I left and hung up my shingle as a fractional COO, and so I could try to do that kind of thing with more businesses, and uh, kind of built that business, starting off as a solopreneur and ultimately leveraging that into a firm of we are now 9 fractional COOs, trying to help small, mid-sized business owners. Along this journey, I also just came in contact with all kinds of other fractional executives and just really became aware of this whole space, this whole real industry, serving small and mid-sized business owners, helping them achieve their dreams, and just realized that there was a complete diffusion. There's just thousands and thousands of individual websites of all different fractional executives, whether
Yeah.
marketing, sales, operations, finance, technology,
Yep.
and just no center of gravity for the entire industry. So I saw that gap and decided to
Hmm.
build something, which in this case is fractional leadership, to be like kind of the source or the resource for fractional leadership, both for the fractional leader side, for
Hmm.
other firms and solo practitioners, and for the business owner side. And so I built fractional leadership and wrote the book, or like the first book on this entire industry.
Yep.
Fractional leadership, landing executive talent you thought was out of reach. It's
Hmm.
kind of how I got into this.
Wow. So you have an extensive background. So from the legal background to now going into fractional leadership. So as you eloquently put it in your book, what the heck is fractional leadership? Tell us a little bit about what it is.
Well, put simply, if you have a leader in your small and mid-sized business, whether it's your head of finance, your head of marketing, your head of sales,
Hmm.
your CTO, head of technology like a CTO or CIO, or whether it's your head of operations like a COO,
Hmm.
it's that, just doing it part-time instead of
Part-time.
full-time. It's really it.
Okay.
Somebody's joining a leadership team or will partner with you to manage a team, manage operations, but just doing it part-time. A lot of questions come to mind for people. Well, how do you do that if it's not full-time?
Yeah.
But that's essentially what it is.
Yeah. So how does that differ from consulting? I know I've done management consulting for most of my career, and so a lot of folks will ask, "Well, what's the difference between a fractional leader and bringing in a consultant?"
Yeah, no, it's a great question. It's a spectrum, so there's different ways that people define each of those things. But the way I like to define it is that when you look at a consultant,
Hmm.
what they're going to do for you is either give advice and guidance,
Hmm.
and or provide some specific service or deliverable to you
Hmm.
that is defined by a specific and finite scope of work.
Right.
That's how I
Right.
define consulting.
Yeah.
Fractional leadership, on the other hand, um, is just like having a member of your team. Like, what's the difference between a member of your team and
Right.
a consultant? Is they're a member of your team, right? They're
Right.
on your organizational chart, they're on your accountability chart. They have ongoing accountability for some function of the business.
Right.
So that's what fractional leadership is. It's people, bringing on a firm or a solo practitioner who is taking over accountability for a function of the business.
Right. Right. So how long does a fractional leader stay with an organization?
Well, obviously, it can depend on what the business needs. I would say typically most fractional leadership engagements are ranging between about, let's say, 6 months and 2 years, just depending on really depending on what it needs, what kind of transformation and improvement or scaling up or whatever are they looking for to be able to get them past the hump and put into place some sort of permanent solution, whether it's enabling them to hire a full-time person for their role. Let's say they bring in a fractional CMO, so they want to bring in then a full-time CMO to perhaps take them over, or a full-time CFO to take them over, or even if it's somebody internally that takes over, or somebody sits in two seats, but just get them to the point where they can kind of ride off into the sunset independently and get them to that point. So it really just depends on the needs of the client, though, how long that's going to take.
Yeah. So, is this for just small business owners, or can mid-sized and large business owners utilize a fractional leader?
Yeah, I mean, large, I don't know, but definitely mid-size. Several hundred people do use fractional executives as well, because and an organization might need different kinds of fractional executives at different stages in their growth. Like, for instance, the person may need a fractional CFO. Let's say, when they're going from 25 people to 100 people, and then they switch to a full-time CFO. But they still may not be big enough at 100 people or 150 people to need a full-time CMO. Like, it's just not a full-time job yet. And even if they could afford a full-time CMO, it just may not be
Right.
needed.
Right. Right. Right.
So they would bring in a fractional CMO at that stage, or maybe they're 250, 300 people, and they're now at the stage where they need greater, like, technology is becoming so critical to day-to-day operations. They have to be always on, and so maybe they want to bring in a CIO, Chief Information Officer. But again, that's not a full-time job. Even if you have 500 people,
Right.
that's maybe not a full-time job. So you can bring in a fractional CIO at that stage.
Right. Right.
And then, maybe when you're 1,500 people, maybe then you need to switch to full-time. But, it's really dependent on the role and and what actually is needed at each stage in the business's growth. But yeah, definitely can be a solution. And also, you might have more, let's say, obscure forms of fractional leadership, like fractional people leadership, or fractional legal leadership, like a fractional CLO, chief legal officer, where you need them in the leadership team, part of decisions, just because there's bigger things going on. You need that insight as part of your leadership team.
Right.
In a 25-person, 50, 100-person company, typically doesn't need a legal officer in any way. I mean, just ask the lawyer a question.
Right. Right.
But maybe in the bigger stage, they might need that,
Right.
or a fractional, customer experience officer, or, just that there are more obscure, so to speak, types of fractional leadership that larger organizations might need on a fractional basis, but it wouldn't make sense. It's just not a full-time role, so they wouldn't need somebody full-time.
Right. So give us an example. So when a CFO comes in or a CMO comes in, what type of what's the first thing they do? Like, what's like, I know it's not a project like a like, not like consulting, right? But what would they do? Do they transform the organization? Do they set up some sort of initiative? What's their role?
Well, yeah, typically they are going to come in and do some sort of transformation, because, like, that's why they're being, like, usually that's why they're coming in. People realize that things are going off the rails, or they're running in the hamster wheel. They're frustrated. They're not, they realize that they need more experienced leadership in some function of the business, and they don't have it. So they need some sort of transformation they need to break through some ceiling that they're hitting. So usually, yes, there's some form of transformation. So it's usually looking at, it starts off with learning the business, learning how things currently work, understanding the business, understanding the customers, understanding the team, understanding what goals, what they want to achieve, and then setting up a plan for how they want to achieve that. What's step A, B, C, D, E to get to whatever Z is, whatever those goals are. And so, could be restructuring, let's say it's marketing. So like, kind of revamping and looking, maybe you started off in marketing just doing completely tactical marketing, but
Right,
you're
right,
saying like,
right,
oh
right.
gosh, I know we need social media, so I hired a vendor to do social media. No, I know we need a website, so I hired somebody to do the website. No, I need, oh, we should probably have a blog. Hey, good idea, let's have a blog, and then get someone to do that.
Yeah,
And maybe hire another vendor to do paid PPC and pay
yeah,
per click and ad spend, and then it just turns into this random acts of marketing, but it's without any real strategy or structure from someone who truly understands and is an expert in,
right,
um, how to achieve your goals through marketing.
right,
So CMO might come in and create a marketing blueprint, a marketing strategy, clarify your vision. Who's your ideal
right,
customer? Where are they
right,
found? What's the message that's going to resonate with those customers? And then completely revamp all of the marketing tactics that you've been doing to align with what you've discovered is your vision and your plan and your strategy for marketing. Make sure that all of your um, all of your marketing tactics
right,
are geared towards the places where the people you've identified as your target market actually are,
right,
and not just doing it for the sake of doing it.
right,
And that the message that's communicated in your social media, in your website, in your mailings, in your whatever, in your
right,
events, in your presentations is all aligned to who your target market is and what that
right.
message that you've agreed to do with them is. Just revamping all of that,
Yeah,
revamping your sales process and your email templates and everything to make sure that those messages are being reinforced there,
right,
and just to kind
right,
of make sure that the whole marketing and sales ecosystem is aligned around your marketing strategy. So they're just going
right,
to kind of start from the ground up and rework everything to the extent it needs reworking. Obviously,
right,
not unnecessarily or not doing
right,
that either
right,
for its own sake, but
right.
that's going to be and then once everything's kind of set up. And yeah,
Mhm.
again, you think, what's the permanent solution? Is it to have them continue managing it on a fractional basis?
Right,
To maybe just
right,
scale down the hours that they're working with you? Do you need to, hire somebody full time at that point, or maybe you don't even, maybe you just, put in place some kind of marketing manager and let the
yeah,
fractional just, kind of go to a once a month check in. I
yeah,
don't know. It's just gonna kind of see
yeah.
whatever the permanent solution would be at that point.
Definitely. Yeah, so these are pretty impactful and powerful people that come in. These are not just folks that are coming in to, do a project and leave. They're doing transformation. They're causing, change impacts. They're really doing a lot of work that helps the organization. So these are definitely positions that can be useful for small and mid-sized, even large businesses too, as they grow and scale, or even as they shift their initiatives or shift their goals or focus for, I guess, the next 5 years or so, right? So one of the things that I noticed in your book is that you give a lot of tips on how to work with a fractional leader. Tell us a little bit about your own experience working with an organization where you've had to go in and work with someone who probably was kind of confused about, what your role was.
Well, I mean, what I can tell you what we do, and putting my company Fractional Leadership aside for a second, right? I have this fractional COO firm, right? So
Mhm.
thinking about, what do we do when we meet with clients is we spend a lot of time on the first call going in depth to understand who they are, what their situation is,
Mhm.
what their goals are, and why their goals are important to them.
Right.
And then we kind of create a custom solution or a custom plan about how
Right.
we would help them get to their goals,
Right.
give them a couple of options of how we might do that faster or slower depending on what they have an appetite for or a budget for.
Right.
And then we present that to them, so we kind of just clearly communicate what what we would be doing for them, what our deliverables are for them, how
Right.
we provide service to them and interact with them, and then get alignment with them on whether they see how those activities that we would be doing get them towards their goals. And so we just try to give them a concrete picture through
Mhm.
this through this kind of consultative approach,
Right. Right.
first learning from them
Right.
everything that we need to know about their team, about their customers, about their goals, where they're coming from, what they've tried already, what hasn't worked, what has
Right.
worked, what is
Right.
working,
Right.
and and then and then put out something together that we can clearly communicate what service we would provide, so that they don't feel like they're fumbling
Yeah.
around in the dark. That
Right.
they have a concrete picture of what we would be doing for them as a
Right.
fractional executive.
So you talked about the different ways in which you go in to talk to fractional leaders. So you go in, do you go in with your team? Do you go in by yourself in order to talk to them about, the current state, as what we call it, in consulting?
Yeah, so whether it's me or someone from my team that would go in and have that initial call with the business owner, see what the situation is, what they want to do, learn about them, and then typically when on the call that we do, and I'm just speaking now not about how everybody in the world works, but just in my firm Wolf's Edge, how we do with our potential fractional COO clients is when we have that second call to go over our proposal and our proposed options and how an engagement would work. We usually have whoever we would propose as the fractional COO for that client on that second call. That's how
Okay.
that's how we do it, and then we just continue scheduling calls after that until it's either a yes or a no, and and meet with whoever we need to meet with to to give them the comfort and information they need to make a decision about what's going to be best for them.
Right, right. That's really good. So you go in with either you or your team, you figure out the current state, then you come up with a solution for them or potential solution on how you can move forward. So what's the third thing you do after that? I mean, do you guys just kind of just set up shop, you're in the office? I mean, do you guys, how does it work?
Well, again, for this fractional COO firm, most engagements are remote. So we, so we do typically we have a monthly retainer, and then we do our first day with the clients. Like let's say it's our whatever our first day with the client, we'll do kind of just
Orientation.
what?
Orientation.
Yeah, yeah, orientation of us,
Yeah.
right, which is mostly learning.
Okay.
And so kind of meeting with the entire leadership team, meeting with any key employees or key team members to learn, how do things work here? What are the processes? How does one department, feed to the other? And, where are the handoffs? And, how do things work? And also what's working, what's not working, just so they learn from everybody what they're
Right.
seeing. And just mostly learning that first day. Even if it is a remote engagement, that first day is often in person. So, we're flying out there or traveling there, or whatever it is, one of our team members spending the day with them and for that learning day. And then, but because the people on our team and any fractional executive that you'd be working with, hopefully, is highly experienced, right? They are an expert at what they do.
Right.
They're an expert at marketing, finance, sales, operations, finance, or technology. So they don't need a huge long ramp up time. Sometimes business owners feel, we see this often. They're like, I think we need like 6 9 months for you to get like up to speed, kind of how our business works. Everybody
Right. Right.
believes that they're completely unique, and they are unique in certain
Yeah.
ways. But there are certain commonalities about how you get alignment and buy-in from a team, how you structure and how you set up your processes, how you find the right people, and certain steps and tools and foundations that are common. A lot of the specifics may be different,
Right.
and so
Absolutely.
that's completely customized. But a lot of how things typically work, or it is susceptible um, to someone who's built businesses before, they've owned businesses before. They're able to come in and really see quickly, and by a lot of listening and with great humility and respect for how people. No one, they certainly don't know as
Yeah.
well as the owner and the team members in the business, their customers,
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
product,
Absolutely.
their team.
Yeah.
So there's a
Yeah.
humility of recognizing that and taking that knowledge into account, but then using their experience in doing this before to help make fast transformation, see around the corners. They're not reinventing the wheel. Like if people would do this on their own without being so experienced, which is what most people do, then they have a lot of experimentation, reinvent. They have a lot of time that they have to spend reinventing the wheel. But they could just bring somebody in here that's already invented the wheel, or at least knows how others invented the wheel, and have implemented wheels many times before. So they could just come in. They do not need a fast. They do not need a long ramp up time. It's not this 9 month
Yeah.
thing like you think of with
Yeah.
an employee.
Yeah.
Um, they're able to come in. We typically at our firm, Wolf's Edge, we have uh, like I said, about a week, like focused on learning and discovery. And then, we could transition very quickly into helping drive transformation
Right.
from there. So there's,
Yeah.
I can get
It's
into more detail if you want in
yeah.
terms of the first quarter, but that's kind of what
Yeah.
the first day looks like.
No, no, no. This is wonderful because what it says is that the structure, right? An organizational structure doesn't change much, right? It's the solution or the problem might be unique, but the structure of an organization, how things run, how things work and operate, that's something that you don't have to reinvent the wheel on, right? There's a framework that's already there. So
Mhm.
a lot of organizations, just in my own experience, yes, they believe they're unique too, and they're unique in sort of the people and the problem, but in terms of the solutions, a lot of times it's the same, and it's kind of rinse and repeat, but rinse, and then repeat, right? But no, this is really great because I have a copy of your book here. I've been going through it, and you provide a lot of good tips to business owners on how to get started and how fractional leaders work for their organization. Including, I noticed at the end that you had an actual agreement in there to help folks, and that's you using your legal background there to help us out with
Well, I,
this.
I make very clear at the beginning, no legal advice here, just trying
Right.
to be helpful and consult your tax and legal professionals for any legal advice.
Absolutely, yeah. No, the disclaimer is well well accepted. Yeah, I mean, but it's good to know that people, when a fractional leader comes in and you find a great person such as yourself, with your background and with your knowledge, you just don't want to, start right away. You definitely want to have some, a statement of work or something that describes what you're going to be doing, because I've experienced that scope creep or out of scope work where you have to now redefine and reassess what's happening there.
Mhm.
So tell us a little bit about why you wrote the book. I can see that you're passionate about the fractional leadership. I would say movement, as they say, right? You have a fractional leadership membership. So tell us a little about that. I mean, I know because I'm a part of it, but in terms of why you started fractional leadership and the membership and how it's been working for you so far.
Uh, why I started fractional leadership goes to one thing I said in answering your first question, which is just this complete diffusion. I mean, doctors have the American Medical Association, you know, optometrists have the American Optometric Association,
Right.
right? And, fractional executives, firms, and solo practitioners have nothing like that.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
just everybody's on their own. That's what I came in to find, when I started looking into this field or, doing this field and looking into this field and connecting with other people. So I just wanted to create a center of gravity to create, for education, advocacy, really to be the source or the resource
Right.
on fractional leadership, both
Right.
for fractional leaders and for business owners. I mean, so for the fractional leader community, we're we're putting together programs for professional development to help people continue getting better in how they serve their clients. Make sure that those clients are then having a good experience, right? Because people
Right.
have the tools and professional development and the resources to get better.
Right.
Some of those tools involve professional development,
Hmm.
education, peer advisory services. Imagine like a Vistage or an EO, but where your community or your accountability community and your peer advisory community is people who understand what you do. The people who understand fractional executive leadership, right? And they understand how to do
Right.
that
Right.
and also allow people to get better and help people get better at business development, at finding clients and
Absolutely.
marketing themselves, which is one of the
Absolutely.
biggest challenges that they have.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we want to create resources.
Right. For everybody. Yeah. So how does one join the network?
If anybody listening or watching has a fractional leadership, solo practitionership, or firm, just go to our website, fractionalleadership.io. There's a tab for, oh, I see it's on the screen. There's a
Yep.
tab for Fractional Leaders. So you just click on Fractional Leaders, and you can, learn about the community and apply to join. If same thing applies to business owners, right? Which is part of the service that we provide this industry, and to
Right.
part of our mission to be the source for fractional leadership is to educate the marketplace. That's part of what I'm doing here on this
Right.
conversation, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Is to try to educate the marketplace. So we have blog articles. We share information for business owners. A lot of it connecting to fractional leadership, information that will help them. We have our podcast, Win-Win podcast, that you were recently on.
Yes.
So
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah.
And
Thank you for having me.
as a fractional COO, as a piece of what you do,
Yeah.
and we have the book, obviously, the media around the book, the website, social media. We try to educate through, and just try to, hopefully, we'll continue up leveling and expanding those efforts, but to show people that, hey, this is a thing you could actually do. You don't have
Yeah.
to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to struggle the way you're struggling.
Yeah.
You don't have to be hitting the ceiling. Like, there are people who've done this before. Like you're not the
Absolutely.
first one that's had to figure out
Yeah.
marketing
Yeah. It's
or
not.
figure
Yeah.
out finance or figure out operations, or technology, or sales. Like, people have done this before. Like, there's help. There's people that have done this again and again. They can just come in and make it so much easier for you. And also take it
It's
off your
true.
head.
Take it off your head. Yeah. Yeah. So do you have to have particular training to be a fractional leader before you join, or how do you vet the individuals that join?
The only requirements we have for joining are that you know that that members are a fit with our core values. We can talk about those core values if you want, but they're a fitting with our core values. The most
Yeah.
important or foundational of which is abundance mindedness.
Mhm.
People who
Yep.
are not living out of fear, but they're living out of a belief that
Yes.
that a rising tide lifts all boats. They all want to help each other. They're not overly competitive or territorial, but
Great.
they're
Yep.
somebody that believes that, look, there's a right fit for everybody.
Yep.
I'm happy to help my competitors because we all help the business owners. And the more we help business owners, the better the industry does, the better name the industry gets, and the more the size of the pie just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. We're not living in a zero sum game. Like, we're living in a constantly expanding pie.
Right.
And we
Right.
for the people who really believe that,
Yeah.
and a couple of other core values, but that's
Yeah.
that's the first thing. And people who are committed to doing fractional leadership for clients. That's really it. It's like core values fit and committed to, like, I want to do fractional leadership for clients. That's really it in terms of joining. We also have a matchmaking service. We also do
Yeah.
take business owner requests, which we're getting more and more of, for vetted fractional leader referrals, and then we are referring them to members of our community who fit what they're looking for in terms of industry experience, in terms
Wow.
of budget, in terms
That's
of
awesome.
whatever.
That's
So
awesome.
we're making those matches. So we're only making those matches with people who, on top of the regular vetting process, we've also independently heard from three of their references, three of their clients who we get a direct reference from, who could say, like, yes, I've worked with this person or this firm, who sat in a fractional C-suite, thing in my business,
Right.
and they did
Right.
they did a great job, whatever. So, like, we have independent verification that they've done this before.
Yeah.
Their clients are happy with them,
Yeah.
and so for those who are referring to businesses, they also have that reference check process on top of the kind of core values fit, and and dedication. And when I say dedicated to providing fractional leadership services to clients, whether, again, it's marketing, sales, finance, technology, operations, maybe
Right. Right.
legal or people operations, that they that they um, that they really want to do this. They're not just somebody who lost their job and are looking to do this to keep the
Right.
lights
Right.
on
You're
while they
passionate
find
about
another
it.
full-time job. We want people who
Yeah.
really want to do fractional executive leadership for clients, are dedicated to
Yes.
getting better in this field.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, because otherwise it's not going to be serving the community well, and it's not going to be serving businesses well. If you have people that aren't really dedicated to wanting to do this specifically,
Right.
be great
Right.
in fractional executive work for clients.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely. That's one of the things that attracted me to the group. I actually met through someone in the network who connected me with you and the group. And of course, I was immediately passionate about it, commenting and
We're grateful to
connecting. with
have you.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Yeah, no, it's a really great group, and I've connected with other folks too who have just reached out. The abundance mindset is very key. We talk about that in the business circle. Making sure that we're not trying to be overly competitive, stepping over people. That is just not productive. It's counterproductive in terms of trying to make sure everybody's successful.
Right.
And so having a group like that is very beneficial. I think, especially in this day and age, when we're working remotely, when we're working to better our lives, with our families, and work toward just doing what we're passionate about. So this is an amazing, initiative, and amazing. I think just you writing the book, it's like a handbook, I would say, for folks who want to be fractional leaders and folks who want to work with them.
I
And the
definitely want to
website.
write another book specifically for fractional leaders, right? Because this one
Okay.
is really a guide. It's landing executive talent you thought was out of reach is the
Right.
subtitle.
Right.
And as you said before,
Hmm.
it's structured to try to give tips and information and knowledge to help business owners
Right.
get their heads around what is this tool? How does it work? Is it for me? Is it not for me? If so, how do I find how do I find the right person? How do I set up the engagement for success?
Right.
But and you're pointing out correctly that you can kind of infer a lot about it for people who want to do it also. But I'd like to write another book, and also provide education and create content
Yeah. Yeah.
for the
Definitely.
community and for members of the fractional leadership community to, and just put the book out there, obviously for the whole world, and also people who are executives and maybe thinking about going into this, or maybe they would
Yeah.
like to go into this, and kind of create
Yeah.
a roadmap for them and
Yeah.
a guide path for them
Oh,
of how you
yeah,
are a
folks would love that.
successful
Yeah,
fractional
folks
leader.
would really, yeah, they would really love that. I mean, especially a roadmap and a guide to coming into
I
fractional.
definitely on my roadmap to do that.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So, where can we find the book? I know where I found it, but you want to tell the audience sort of where you found where you
You could search on Amazon
found.
for Fractional Leadership. It's paperback, hardcover, Kindle, and Audible. Right, so I get my books on Audible
Yeah.
personally. So I definitely want it to be broadly available. However you like to consume books. Obviously, you can also go to our website, fractionalleadership.io. That's not .com, it's
Hmm.
.io.
Yep.
And there's another tab there. You can click on book, so you can get
Okay.
information about the book. You can also buy copies in bulk at a discount if you want, or let's say you're a fractional leader, you want to use it as a business development tool, buy copies in bulk at a discount. But just click on the book page on the website, or just go straight to Amazon and search for it.
Yeah, this is amazing. We know where to find the book. So before we kind of close out, so I will say, whenever folks come on and they're a guest, we always ask them about their self care regimen. I know you're selling the book, you've got the network, you've got Wolf Consulting. How do you take care of self? What's your regimen?
Well, my self care regimen is to plan to do self care in the future. That's my that's my self care regimen. What I will say is I'm not great in this, and
I don't, yeah, no.
I'll admit that openly, like the butler said to Pharaoh in the book of Exodus. I mentioned my sins today, that that I'm not great in this, and so what I would say, and what I do, the one piece I do, is that sometimes, I'm sure like many of you, I get busy, and
Right.
sometimes when you get so busy, you're just running from one thing to the
Yes.
other, and
Yes.
start to feel overwhelmed, and start to feel, sometimes I feel overwhelmed, or I feel like I'm lacking direction, or like I'm just running and running. But what if I'm not doing the right things? Or what if there's, sometimes there's some sort of intractable problem or dilemma, or just doesn't seem like there's any good way out or good way through. Sometimes just feeling overwhelmed or underwater.
Right.
And so one of the tools that I learned from the book Traction, by Gino Wickman, How to Get a Grip on Your Business.
Traction by
Traction
genomics. Okay. By
is
genomics. Mhm.
this concept of clarity breaks. So what he teaches there. I mean, look, people have all different. People use mindfulness meditation. They use this. They use that. There's all kinds of things available. Um, But the tool that he mentions there on how to do a clarity break is to, take an hour aside where you're not by your computer, your phone is away, there's no distractions. Maybe you might do it outside while you're walking, you might do it
Right.
on the beach, you might do it on the balcony, in a private room somewhere, but would just get all distractions away, open up a pen and a blank legal pad, and just block out at least an hour to
Yeah.
just see what
Yeah.
comes out. And typically, what happens to me when I do this, because I'm in that situation, I'm in that kind of emotional state of feeling overwhelmed or like I'm hitting a ceiling, is to take one of these clarity breaks and sit there for that hour. And usually, what happens when I pull out that notepad is is that I start writing down questions. Kind of like whatever's most on my mind. How do
Right.
we do
Right.
this? How should we do that? Or I don't know, whatever. Just
Yeah.
write down
Just
whatever's on my
whatever comes to
mind,
mind. Yeah. Yeah.
and then I just try to follow my instincts and just try to follow. Okay, or just start writing ideas, or I don't know, just start writing thoughts or ideas, or just writing things down on one of those questions. And maybe my mind takes me to another question, so I don't fight it. I'll just go to the other question,
Right.
or maybe I don't write anything about one or two of the
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah.
Or maybe I have a new question that comes to mind while I'm in the middle of thinking about one thing, so I'll quickly write down that question and
Right.
come back
Right.
to writing down thoughts. And almost always I come out of those hours of out of those clarity breaks with more clarity. Like with
Yep.
okay, here's what I'm going to do, communicate that. Like I just come out with
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
I have a breakthrough,
Yeah.
of some sort when I do those clarity breaks. So I don't do a lot, and God willing,
Yeah.
I'm trying to build the businesses in a way that's kind of, if those who are looking at video see the book behind me, Who Not How by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy. And I'm trying to build out the businesses with a philosophy of who not how. It's saying who can drive something to get it done, who could drive something to what it needs to be, and not how do I do it. So I'm trying to build these businesses
Mm.
out in a way of building teams, building
Right.
collaboration, building alignment around end goals, end vision. What's the Z and the A to Z, or what's the end destination typed into the GPS, and let other people run with things. I'm trying to build things out, to build a structure around me
Right.
where I don't have to be kind of running all the time doing work done. I could,
Right.
kind of do more self
Clarity
care and
breaks. Yeah.
family care,
Hmm.
and also just focus on higher order activities and higher order functions for my own self, so that I could really be adding my highest and best value to the organizations that I'm part of,
Right.
rather than a
Right.
lower version of myself because I'm so
Right.
busy.
Right. Yeah, burnout is real, especially when you're passionate about your business and you're driving and you're moving all the time, and self-care is something we all neglect. I don't think anybody should be, feel guilty about it. Even me, I have a self-care regimen, but then I forget because I'm running the business and I'm doing different things. But no one should be ashamed about whether they do it. It's as long as you're doing it and there's intention, right? The intention is there, and then when you're doing it, the energy that you're exuding out is bringing you more clarity. And
Hmm.
so, clarity breaks is what we'll say your self care regimen is. I'm going to take a clarity break, myself this weekend and start writing some stuff down. But that's a good tidbit. I hope folks in the audience take that on. I talk about that even in my interview with you on your Win Win podcast, really getting that clarity, sitting down, whether it's on your deck or on vacation, and just writing out your thoughts, whatever that is and whatever comes to mind, because it's such a powerful thing. There are things that come through my head and I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, let me write it down or let me record it. So it's definitely a great thing to do. So yeah, but yeah, let's all, I guess, promise ourselves or give ourselves a, not promise, but a goal to do some self-care, clarity breaks or whatever that is, for ourselves, as we are on this entrepreneurship journey. But this is, I can talk about fractional leadership all day because I have more questions, and I'm sure there are folks, especially in consulting, that I've worked with before, who are probably more interested in this, because consulting is one thing, but fractional leadership is another. But there's a way that you can work in tandem together. But I think that it's very impactful when you have a fractional leader, someone who has that experience at a what we call a C-suite or executive level that can give you that clarity within your organization. So,
Yeah.
Ben, this has been great. You were going to say something?
Well, yeah, I was just going to say, you asked me earlier, and you just reminded me of it now about qualifications for being a fractional leader. So I would say the only other one is that
Mhm.
somebody's been has been a full-time executive in that
Yeah.
role before. I
Hmm.
think that unless you've gone through that gauntlet,
Oh
then
gosh,
it's hard to
absolutely.
be,
Yeah,
it's hard to imagine that you're going to be successful doing it on a fractional basis if you haven't even done it full time before. So I
absolutely.
think that, it's a gauntlet. It's, whatever, I don't want to go back to doing that again,
Right,
but I think
right.
that it is critical. It is a critical bit of kind of experience to go through
Yeah.
that first.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely is. And having that peer to peer conversation and working with folks that are like minded, that understand the pressures and what needs to be done and what needs to be focused on at a particular time. So yeah, definitely, I think it's going to be it's big now, but I think it's going to be even bigger as we talk more about it and as you write more books, as you said. So we can reach you, as you mentioned before, at fractionalleadership.io. Are you on Facebook, Twitter? What are your handles there?
Well, main thing I'm on is LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn under
Yep.
Ben Wolf, and
Hmm.
we do have things posted on Facebook and Twitter. Not as active there though. Mostly LinkedIn.
Okay, cool. LinkedIn, and then you have the Win Win podcast, which they can,
Yeah, subscribe to that on any
subscribe to that.
platform. Spotify,
Hmm.
Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or whatever they are. Stitcher, etc. It's also on YouTube,
Okay.
and so you can get it any of those places.
Awesome, awesome. Well, Ben, it has been a true pleasure to have you on today. I'm so glad that we had this time to chat. We definitely want to bring you back again once you've written your second book, or if you're in the process, or even have a panel discussion about it. I'd love to see.
Happy to. You're
Yeah.
great. The show is awesome.
Oh, thank you.
It's so professional, and just grateful to have you in the fractional leadership community. For the fractional COO piece of your practice at Radient Pearl,
Yeah.
and just grateful for you having me on. And this, yeah, enjoy the conversation.
Yeah, definitely. So, for folks out there that want to find out about Ben and any information about the Radiant Pearl Business Circle, you can go to www.radiantpearl.com. You can go to subscribe or Business Circle on the menu there and subscribe to our waiting list as we build our membership to continue to talk about business leadership and self care. So, Ben, thanks again for coming. Everyone, take care.